Hey, Rich and Steve, can you hear me?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great.
Trying to unmute Rich. Okay, so you guys are self-muted now, right? Okay, Steve.
Now I can self-mute.
Okay. For some reason, I can't unmute Rich. Let's see, Rich. I don't get this.
Rich, on the right side, you can see a panel underneath all the microphone stuff that says questions with a little arrow. You click that down, you should be able to type in questions if you're not able to fix the mute issue.
Or or chat. Okay, I'm in the
Yeah,
chat feature right now.
I don't see that on mine.
Chat under handouts.
Nope, I only have questions.
All right.
Handouts one and then questions.
All right. Well, then I'll just look in questions. Um, Yeah, I clicked to unmute all attendees, but for some reason Rich is still muted. So you see the handbook screen, right, Steve?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Yay. Rich, do you want to type in a question just to make sure I can see if you have anything come up? Steve, could you text Rich and just make sure he can hear me?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Okay, Rich can hear and see everything, so
Okay, that's good.
we're
So
good
he'll
to
just
go.
text you, I guess, if he has a question.
Yeah, I think he's able to ask the
Text.
questions on
Oh, okay.
the panel here on the right. Are we waiting for a couple others?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just gonna wait until 12.
Okay.
We have about 10 people signed up.
Okay, cool.
Thank you for getting on early, though. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everything was working. And I've never, I don't think I've ever used this webinar
I've
over
only
this.
done it, I've only done it once, like last year, and nobody could hear me, so it was kind of a disaster. And I didn't realize that until like the end of the webinar. So I'm glad we're off to a good start.
Yeah.
Hey, Ashley, we're gonna get started in just another minute. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 12:01, so thank you all for taking your lunch break and spending it with us. I thought we should just go through the updated version of the volunteer handbook. Um, I am going to try and pay attention to the questions feature throughout the webinar. So if you have anything that you want me to elaborate on, feel free to type in the questions box and I will try and get to you. Otherwise, I will just follow up with individuals after the webinar. So let's go ahead and dive in. Um, so this is our brand new updated leadership handbook, our leaders handbook that has been approved by our Alumni Association Board of Governors. Virtually the same as what you all have seen in the past. We've just made a few updates and edits, so we wanted to take some time to just walk through that with you and give you time to ask any questions. So we'll start here on the mission and vision. And I apologize, I have notes in front of me and then I'm going to be scrolling, so I'll try to keep up. But we have the mission and vision of the Alumni Association, and I encourage especially the network leaders, the presidents, vice presidents who are on the call, just to kind of take time once or twice a year to go through this and make sure that your network is focused and grounded and on the right track. Hopefully this isn't new information to you, but quickly, the mission of the Alumni Association is to connect, cultivate, and channel the power of alumni to enrich themselves and advance the university. And we are the heart of the university, inspiring lifelong connections with a global network of Maryland alumni. And so you all help support our mission and vision. And so the network goal is to strengthen TERP pride among all alumni and the connection with the university through planning engaging events to keep alumni connected. So again, this just, if you all are ever feeling like, what's our purpose or what are we doing? We feel lost. Feel free to reflect back on this and maybe spend some time at your board meeting going through this. I think it might help. If you go to page, at a glance, page 8, hopefully you've seen these numbers before, as most of it was included in the state of the association, but I think that these are great numbers for you all to see year to year. What's really impressive is we've done, between staff-led and volunteer-led, 593 events in this past fiscal year, engaging almost 18,000 alumni. So that's that's really impressive, and just a kudos to you all. Thank you so much for all that you're doing to increase these numbers year after year. We have information about starting a network, which doesn't really apply since all of you already have a network, but we include this just for new staff or volunteers that are in remote regions that are looking to begin a network, just some like baseline information. I think what's most appealing to most of you is the next page where we talk about the network board, and we've elaborated on the roles and responsibilities and the term limits. So I'm not going to read this whole entire page to you, but I encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to read through this. What I did want to point out is we have established 2 new positions, one of which is the membership chair and the other is the gold chair. So the membership chair is somebody that reports into, well, you'll still report into your staff advisor, you'll still sit on the board, but this person would work very closely with the Assistant Director of Membership Marketing with the goal of increasing membership and somebody basically owning membership on the board and talking to the board about updates from the Alumni Association in regards to membership, implementing membership pricing at events whenever possible, maybe implementing a special member experience. We felt like as staff, we're constantly sharing all kinds of updates and like, oh, you should do this, or how about this? And it can just be a little bit overwhelming for the board to just hear all of these things. And so we thought maybe it would be best if there's one person on the board that kind of owns this responsibility, and they're going to have quarterly calls with Taylor, who most of you have met at the leadership conference. She's really great, and she can provide a lot of direction as far as like things to know about membership, which the membership chair then can communicate at the board meetings. And then the gold chair is a representative is an alum who just graduated within the last 10 years, and they're going to be focused on planning 2 events annually to engage alumni within the last decade. Now, term limits. I am going to read this because it's not totally new information, but it's new to the handbook. So all positions, including executive committee, are a 2-year elected appointment. The current network leaders, in conjunction with their alumni association advisor, will select new volunteer leaders. Volunteers should not serve more than 3 consecutive terms, except for the president, who may remain on the board for 1 additional term as past president. So the role of past president is not included in the 3 consecutive terms. 6 years is the maximum time able to serve on the board, except for the past president, who would be on the board for 8 years max. Now, if you hit your 8 years max, you can then take a 2-year break, and then you can reapply. You're not automatically on the board, you just have to reapply. So I just want to make sure that's really clear. 6 years max, 2-year terms, 3 years, 3 consecutive years, so total of 6. But if you're a past president, then you can be on for a total of 8. I know that there's some boards where it's a challenge to find new network leaders, so you might decide to take a 2-year break, take a refresh, and then reapply to join the board back in 2 years, and that's totally fine. But let me check the questions and make sure. Okay, so does it look like there's any question? Oh, wait. It's up to the individual. So I had a question, is 3 terms in the same role? That's up to the board and how it functions. If somebody, if the president doesn't get voted out of their position for some reason and they want to be president, if they just happen to be, I think it's unusual that somebody would start as president, but if you're vice president and then you're president and then you happen to stay president again, it's whatever works for the board, but it's 6 years max. Okay, going on to managing your network. So just to reiterate that it's up to the volunteers to focus on recruiting new alumni to join your board. So all staff would encourage you to be connecting with alumni throughout the year at your various events to try and identify key alumni to join the board at the start of the new fiscal year, unless you have a gap in leadership and you need someone to roll on sooner rather than later. That's up to you all. But the point being, it's really up to the board leaders to be actively looking to recruit new volunteers. And just to remind you, the year is July 1 to June 30th. So that typically in the spring is when we start to think about who's rolling off. Do we need to add new volunteers? Do we have a list of people that we want to consider joining the board? So that's something that especially the executive committee should be thinking about. I would encourage starting March, April timeframe. Moving on to policies and procedures. So this is not too much new information except for one new caveat that we added. The existing information being that the network should have their own bank accounts, that they should operate on a break-even basis. So we added that the network shouldn't carry over more than $2,000 if possible. So this is a gray area. It's not in stone, but the point of that line is that we just want networks to be spending the funding that we give you on programming to engage alumni. We don't want this to be a situation where the networks are just gathering up as much money as they can and just having one massive event every 2 years. That's not really the intent. But we understand that there's situations where there will be overage of $2,000, and that's okay. We just want to encourage you all to spend the money primarily on events. So you'll see the approved use of networks funds room rental, catering, speaker gifts when necessary, but no more than 25% of network budget to be allocated towards purchasing items to raise money. So you don't want to spend the majority of your money on giveaway items or like t-shirts and um, tchotchke types of things. The majority of the funds should be spent on this room rental and catering line. So scrolling down to succession planning, similar to what I just mentioned on the slide before, we just want to reiterate that it's really up to the volunteers to recruit new board members. Of course, your staff liaison, staff advisor is there to support you, and we can always put a call out in your local digest if you, or you guys can advertise on social media if you're looking for new volunteers and you haven't really met anyone that you want to invite through an event. But just again, you want to be keeping tabs on how people are doing on the board. Are they rolling off? Have they hit their 2-year term? Are they going to continue to serve, etc.? A few things that I want to be sure that are kept on the network Google Drive, and that's kind of the next slide as well. All networks should have their own Gmail account, which all board related information must be kept on the network account. It should not be kept in personal email accounts. So your bylaws should be on the Gmail account. Your monthly meeting agenda should be kept on there. The treasurer report each month. If you have a roster, that would be great. A copy of the handbook is always nice, but especially the meeting minutes and the bylaws, or any other pertinent event planning documents, we'd ask that you keep that all on the shared Gmail account and make sure that all of your network leaders have access to that account. It really helps when there's transition between staff and volunteers that everyone has access to that information. Okay, so as far as resources for our alumni networks, um, we talked a little bit at the leadership conference, and the team is actually discussing this week a more finalized version of the funding model for FY20. So stay tuned for that. So that information is pretty vague right now, just because we understand that it changes sometimes. But as far as insurance goes, the liability coverage is up to $1 million for event coverage. You all, this is kind of like just nitty gritty information, but the Alumni Association, we complete a 990 that we submit to the IRS annually. You guys can kind of read through that. But under support services, you hopefully already know this because you're receiving this, but as you know, we provide registration pages through Alumni Q. We send you event materials whenever you need them, such as M's and Poms, name tags, giveaway items whenever possible. We'll help market the events through our email system. We provide funding for the events. We can pull data on alumni living in your area to help better target where and the best location is to have an event or to do personal outreach. We, of course, encourage everyone to attend the leadership conference. That's basically that. Hopefully, you all are also aware that you have to be a current member of the Alumni Association to be an active board member, and we do offer a special rate for our board leaders, so $25 for an annual and $650 for single. So that's a nice discount for you all for all the hard work that you do. Setting up the network finances, I believe most of you already have a network bank account, but if you do not, I would encourage you to talk directly with your staff advisor and they can help you through this process. But you know, if you are having consistent events, then I would encourage you to set up a network account. So under the events, this is not new information. It's pretty standard, just the general events that we suggest networks do. You guys are all doing this and a whole lot more, but we encourage professional networking events. We know that that's what the number one thing that alumni want. So whenever possible, if you find a speaker or some interesting topic, that's always a great idea to do an event around. Social events, game watches, you all do that. Community service events, be thinking about this. April is going to be here before we know it, and that's Do Good Service Month. So we will be asking all of our networks to be doing a service event in the month of April. So we already have a few networks that have events planned, which is really exciting. And then, of course, there's family-friendly events, culture events, etc. You guys get the idea. We're always happy to connect you with other network leaders if you want to brainstorm. We created a network leaders roster on the website that we sent out after the leadership conference. So if you didn't get that link or you didn't attend the leadership conference, just follow up with your staff advisor after. We can send you the website, which includes all of our network leaders and their contact information. And that's a private link just that only the network leaders have access to. Now, something that is important to go over is the fundraising policy, because I know a lot of you are starting to do more fundraising types of events, which is really great, but we just want to remind you that to fundraise, it has to be for the Alumni Association or a University of Maryland group. Networks cannot fundraise for any organization or group outside of the university. So I think that's pretty clear, but if you have any questions, just feel free to share with your staff advisor. Let's see. Okay, so email marketing. Lindsay did a really nice job talking about email marketing at the leadership conference, but if you weren't able to be there, Alumni Q is our email marketing platform. So your events are marketed in the digest that goes out once a month, or we can send additional emails as our schedule allows. We also encourage you to use social media. Our team can help create social graphics to promote your events. So just let us know what you need and we're happy to help. Additionally, we can also pull past attendee event lists, and your board can do personal one-on-one outreach through the network email account. So if you had a crab feast last year and you're gearing up for this year's crab feast, we can pull the list of those who attended and you can say like, hey, Joe, just want to invite you to this year's crab feast. I hope to see you, blah, blah, blah. People respond really well to personal outreach. So I would really encourage, if your event numbers are down and you're looking for ways to boost the numbers, that's proven to be pretty successful. With personal outreach, the reason that's so successful is because you all have been doing a really nice job at with submitting your attendee list from past events. So the only way that we can to give you past attendee lists is if you're providing them to us so that we can code them and add them to our master database. So please, please, please continue to send the data from your events to your staff advisors so we can get that information coded. That's really important. As far as event follow-up, from time to time, we know that networks, especially for some of your more signature events, like to do follow-up. That's always encouraged. It's a great best practice. If you would like, we have a standard survey that we send out for our events, so we would be happy to create a survey on behalf of your network, and you can include a link to the survey in your post-event follow-up. And again, that we encourage that to come through your network Gmail account. As far as events with alcohol, I think you all know this. There's never been an issue, but again, alcohol should never be the primary reason that you're having an event. There always should be another motive. So even with a happy hour, you're doing a happy hour to network professionally. If you're doing a brewery tour, it's an educational experience to learn about the product, etc. So again, no concerns there, but we like to include that information just to make sure that no one abuses the policy. And as far as, again, I mean, we haven't seen people hosting events in their home, but you want to have a professional hired bartender, do events at a bar, establish a location that has a liquor license just to keep yourself protected. incorporating the membership message, again, if your membership chair would kind of own this, but it's important for all board members to know, because I understand that not every board is going to have a membership chair, which is perfectly fine. But we could always, even if there's not a specific membership chair, we could definitely put the president or somebody else of interest in touch with Taylor, and she can keep you informed on different membership messaging that we have taking place here at the Alumni Association. And then we just give you some why you should join facts. And of course, the membership pricing is here, which you should be pretty familiar with. Giving opportunities. We do have a brick campaign. Hopefully you all know that. So there's the big bricks down by the fountain, and then the pavers up at the top on Legacy Plaza. Giving Day is in March, I believe. So you'll be hearing more information about that, because we encourage all of our networks to get involved, as that's the day of giving for the whole university. So we want to make sure that as many alumni give back as possible, regardless of the size of the gift. So this is new, or updated. So we've changed it to volunteer expectations. And so we have, what is required to be a board member. We include the membership information, the term limits in brief, because we include more information in the past pages. And then just a confidentiality statement, just ensuring that you're not going to share any data that you receive with, use it for your own personal gain. So all of that information is pretty much the same, but we're going to ask you to sign that. And we also have the non-discrimination policy and a code of conduct. So it's very important that every person reads through all of this. This is coming from, again, the Board of Governors. This is what they all sign, and you all are also going to be held responsible for this. So we ask that you're going to hear more from your staff advisor, but every board member is going to need to return the volunteer expectations, the non-discrimination policy, and the code of conduct by January 13th. So you're getting a heads up now, but every board member does need to read through this and sign it, and they won't be able to participate in board activities after June 13th if they don't sign this. This is really important, and we take this very seriously. So please do read through it. And so that is the handbook. Again, I think the major differences, or the newest bits and pieces of the handbook, are an outline of the term limits, and we've included the code of conduct and non-discrimination information. Back in the appendices, this information is the same. We give you a bunch of different templates to use to help equip you to have the best board meetings possible. So we ask that you definitely have a board meeting agenda. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, but this is a template to go off of. And again, this should be saved on your network drive. Again, I think the treasurers all do something a little different, but again, it's just a template to work off of to keep track of what is being spent. A year-end report. You'll hear more about what the expectation is for this once we firm up the funding model, but a variation of this will be asked of most all networks moving forward. And then again, you can choose to use the event planning sheet if you'd like. It's just kind of here just to help support you all. The sign-in sheet is important. We are able to send you a mobile check-in, so you can check folks in that have already pre-registered for an event on your phone. But if they haven't pre-registered, or you don't feel like dealing with that kind of technology, then we do ask that you have a check-in sheet to gather this information. And we do ask that you gather the first, last class year and email, because that helps us find people that have similar names, or generic names like a Chris Johnson or something. It can be hard to find that person if we don't have a class year and email. So please do encourage people to provide all of that information when you're at your events. We did have a conversation at Leadership Conference about branding and logo usage. Some of the story is, before you have anything printed, send it to your staff advisor and so that they can share it with Sagan and make sure that it's approved. We have a list of pre-approved vendors that you must choose to work with. And that's also, those vendors know what is approved marks and what is not, what are not approved marks. So brand integrity is really important. We want to make sure that we keep the University of Maryland brand strong and that we don't alter marks. So if for some reason you don't have one of these logos for your network, we certainly can create them. And that's basically it, folks. So let me look to see if there's any other questions. Just a sec. So someone had asked if someone could be at large and then become secretary and then become president. They certainly can if it really depends on the board, and they would vote on the positions at the end of the, or like the start of the year. So if for some reason the VP doesn't want to be president or whatnot, it's really up to the board. It doesn't necessarily matter to us if people jump from secretary up to president. So yes, we will be sending the code of conduct for each board member to sign. That will be sent through your staff advisor. Oh, an email version. Yes, we have it as a PDF, so I imagine that people would be able to sign that, but we'll talk as a team and make sure that we send you a version that's easy for you to sign, since we must have everyone sign it. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to sign. So that's all the questions I have right now. I'll wait like 10 more seconds in case anybody else has a question. Otherwise, I thank you all so much for tuning into the webinar, and I hope that you found it helpful. And thank you again for all that you're doing, and I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. All right, bye everyone. Take care.